Posno, posloucháte konopný podcast.
Great.
Posloucháte konopný podcast.
Posloucháte konopný podcast.
Posloucháte konopný podcast.
Perfect.
Ja, ik ben een beetje, podcast is voor mij de enige manier om überhaupt een beetje reclame te kunnen
Hello,
maken.
you are listening to
De
English
rest is
edition
allemaal
of Canopy
appreciëren, is allemaal
Podcast,
allemaal niet.
dedicated
Nee.
to cannabis
Maar als ik gewoon
growing
een
and
podcastje aan het doen ben met
interesting
iemand en ik ben aan het
information
vertellen
about
over het
cannabis.
experiment.
My name is Joseph Krejcik and I'm publishing
toch
books and
informatie gewoon?
articles on this
Kan ik er
topic
wat in
for
doen?
more than
Dat
12
iemand met
years.
een vraag?
I'm wishing you a pleasant listening.
Hoppa. I said it several more times. En in Dutch also, hè?
Yeah.
Welkom bij deze podcast.
Okay. Yeah, you are listening to Canopy Podcast, Cannabis Podcast in English, and I'm here with Patrick Stevens. Maybe some of you knows him from BioBiz company. And yeah, Patrick, I think you will do it better. Can you introduce yourself a little?
All right, yeah. Because BioBiz was one of the things that I did, but okay. Hello, my name is Patrick. I'm 53. I started growing, I think, in 1985 when I was just a kid.
I was 8 years old at that time.
You were 8 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
I was 15, and honestly, it was 1985. You know, there was no seed bank, there was no books. You know, there was
1995?
1985.
85.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
yes. So you know, one millennium before this one.
Good.
So there was no books or seed banks, fertilizer companies, no lights or whatever. There was only a Dutch song in the radio by a Dutch reggae band called Nederwiet, which means like Dutch cannabis.
Okay.
And they sung that you put the seed in the ground somewhere in April or in May, and that the seed will come out and it will grow, and it will grow bigger and bigger, and it will have flowers and it will start smelling. And somewhere in September you have to cut it down.
Yeah,
That's the only information we had.
good.
So we knew we have to put a seed in the ground somewhere in springtime, and at the end of the summer it should be good to chop, and then you have to dry it and smoke it. That's all the knowledge we had. But that was, I was still a young boy, so and that first weed was not very good. But when I grow up a little bit, of course, in the Netherlands, we are officially allowed to have 5 plants in the garden. So whenever I had a garden when I was young, I was trying to grow some weed outdoors so that I would have something to smoke in the winter. But I think in the early 2000s, I had an offer to work in the cannabis industry. It was a wholesale company for grow shops. It was one of the first in the Netherlands. And then you learn something a lot more about cannabis, you know, all the equipment that, all the different types of grow methods, the different types of light, all the different fertilizers that you have, and it was fantastic. I started, in the back repairing broken equipment, and a couple of months later I was export manager for doing the foreign sales. I did it for a couple of years. It was one of the best times of my life. That company was called The Plantage. Maybe a very older generation people still remember them, but then I had, after that, I was asked by the company BioBiz, which makes organic plant food, if I wanted to come and work for them, because I was export manager for this company, so I knew a little bit everywhere in Europe where the business was. So I started working for BioBiz because I like organic gardening, and there was no real competition for organic fertilizer in the beginning of 2000s. There was BioBiz and there was Guanucolong.
Okay.
Which Guanucolong was actually, I think, in Czech Republic also quite popular.
This Egbert, I made an interview
Egbert,
last year.
they're on the other side over there. And he's a good friend of mine. He still is.
I know Egbert for a couple of years as well.
So I decided to work for BioBiz because it's organic, and I appreciate something that is organic. And there was also not that many competition. And I worked there eventually for 15 years.
Okay.
I travel all over the world for BioBiz. I spoke with growers in Iran, in Japan, New Caledonia. I went all over South America. I went to Las Vegas one time. It was not a success. American market is not too fast for me. But basically I traveled to all corners of the world and to Europe to talk with people about organic gardening and growing with BioBiz and smoking good weed.
Yes,
I can tell you the people in Iran, they make fucking nice weed.
Oh,
yes. They understand how to grow something nice.
Yeah. I think they have some history in it.
Actually, yes, before the whole Islamic Revolution, of course.
Yes.
Because listen, a lot of our knowledge about hashish production comes from that area.
Yeah.
Nowadays, of course, it's a little bit different situation, but they still have a fantastic climate to grow wheat. You know?
Unfortunately, there are still people who have no freedom. You know, there is not too much freedom in this world, but
it is very fucked up to smoke a joint in Iran. But a lot of people are doing it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, you just have to know how to do it. You know, you go in, for example, in Tehran, next to Tehran there is a mountain, and if you go up there, on the top there is like animation for Tehran people. There is zip lines, there is a bobsleigh,
really?
There is a London burger, restaurants and stuff like that. But the people go there in the night. They go up there because there's also a park, and on the benches in this park, you sit down, you roll a few joints with your friends, you smoke the joints, and then you leave. And then other people sit down there and they do exactly the same, so that there is like kind of a rotation.
Okay.
But if you're walking up the mountain over there, from a distance, you're already smelling that you're getting near. So it doesn't matter if cannabis is legal or illegal. People in every country in the world will find a way to grow and consume it anyway.
Yeah.
You know? So
it's just a plan, and it's connected to human being for a long time, so it's not possible to erase it with political decision.
And it's fucking awesome also, to smoke a doobie when you are looking over the city of Tehran, or when you are in Medellin and you go up the mountain and you find also fantastic, beautiful Colombian weed, the Punto Rojo. It flowers for like 16 to 18 weeks, and it has red pistils. It's a weed I've never seen before. It's fantastic to smoke. It has like a hazy sativa flavors, And then you are not only sitting in Colombia smoking, you're not only sitting there and smoking a very good joint with people, but you're looking out over the town of Medellin, fucking Colombia. Those things are basically, thanks for working at BioBiz. I was able to experience all that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But
It's nice to see such places. In Iran, they grow wheat with seeds or sensibilia. Do you remember if they had?
There is approximately between 600,000 and 1 million cannabis seeds smuggled into the country every year.
Okay.
Mostly from Spain.
Yeah. Cool.
I was amazed. In the beginning, when I was in contact with the people in Iran, I said, "Hey, we want to have some BioBiz nutrients." I thought, okay, but what kind of market is it going to be there? And then I started looking more into it and starting talking to more and more people. And there is essentially, Iran has a relatively big middle class of young people. Everybody in Iran is young, you don't have someone, so everybody is somewhere around 25. They cannot really travel too much because there's embargoes. They cannot really, they are not doing bad, they do, everybody is very educated because school is free and everybody has like 3 or 4 master's degrees in something. But at the same time, they are quite bored. There's not so much to do. So what they do, they grow weed. Because weed it's not alcohol, but it's something to relax. It's a plant, so it's more friendly. But on the other side, if you imagine that this is the weird thing, if imagine that you are gay and you want to go to a techno party and you want to take some ecstasy. You know what is the best place to go in the area over there? Tehran.
Really?
Yes. Underground in Iran, there is an underground black market that has everything that is normal and not allowed. You can get it.
How many people live in Tehran? Do you know it?
I don't know. It's millions, huh? But so there is a huge underground market for seeds. Are you huge? Okay, up to 1 million seeds per year. It's relatively big. So if you know there are so many seeds going there, that means people also have to grow.
Yeah.
So then you know also there is a market for fertilizers, for lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So everything always starts with the seed, huh?
Yeah. That's right. That's
You
right.
have to plant the seed.
When you well, actually, we wanted to talk about
Something
Dutch
completely different.
No. Yeah, but I want to say that we were to talk about Dutch cannabis experiment, but I have to ask a couple of other questions, of course. When you talk about organic growing, what's your opinion regarding production of medicinal cannabis? Because in most of countries, if you want to produce medical cannabis, you cannot grow organically because it's not well controlled. So I have to ask somebody with such experience as you are, do you think that it's possible to standardize process with organic fertilizers? Or
But the thing with medical cannabis is that essentially you have to, first of all, you have to find a strain, you have to find a variety that is ultra stable. Yeah, because you cannot have a situation where you have one batch of medical cannabis that has, for example, 21.2% THC, and then the next batch that you are doing has a THC level of 23.6. You know, the people, when your medical cannabis has to be exactly the same all the time. So you have to steer, you have to force the production process of the plant in a specific direction so that it will always give you exactly the same result.
yeah.
And the not necessarily the only way of doing it, but the most easy and efficient way of doing that is by using mineral fertilizer.
Yes.
Because with mineral fertilizer you can say, I would need exactly this amount of nitrogen, exactly this amount of phosphorus and potassium to feed to the plant. You can fine tune all the conditions on almost on a molecular level. When you are growing organically, you are relying on nature, on the symbiosis of the plant and the microorganisms in the substrate to work together to feed the plant in a correct way. You know, when you are feeding organic fertilizer, you're not feeding the plant, you're feeding the life in the soil.
Yes.
They process that food and make it available for the plant to assimilate. So that means you don't have a direct feeding contact with the plant, but you have an indirect one. And if it's indirect, it means there can be discrepancies. You know, a plant can respond in a different way. So that's why medical cannabis in the vast majority is grown in hydroponics with mineral fertilizers and with a lot of automated and very precise grow methods. Because you need to have always exactly the same thing. And when you grow recreational cannabis, that is all irrelevant. You know, and then it's more easy for you to choose an organic because if you want to grow your own weed, and if one batch has I don't know 25% THC and the other one has 23, it doesn't matter so much. You're growing it yourself. You're growing organically. You're growing like balls.
And if you need stronger, you can smoke 2 joints.
Yeah, exactly. Good one. Just roll a bigger joint.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, because lots of people now wants to smoke weed which has more than 30% THC or whatever.
Yeah, but that's also a thing. You know, it's you know, okay. I mentioned THC level several times now, but you know, it's not the only the cannabinoids that give you the effect.
Exactly.
It is the what do you call it? The entourage effect of the cannabinoids, of the terpenes, and of the flavonoids. You know, and those three work together to give you a specific effect. You can have, I don't know, a genetic with 29-30% THC, but if the terpene profile, you know, if the terpenes that are dominant, if they give you a more uplifting or energetic effect, you're not going to get a stone from it, as if you would have terpenes that are basically pushing you back in the couch and forcing you to take your remote control and switch on Netflix for some binge watching. You know? So it's always the thing also that what they're saying now in Germany, okay, we want to legalize cannabis, but people under 21, they can only buy weed that has not more than 10% THC. It's a little bit ignorant, because it's not only the THC that gives them the effect. No?
Yeah, you are right. But in this, especially in this point, I agree that like first user and new users, because me myself, I also started to smoke outdoor weed, which is in general
A little bit lower, yeah.
and at the time when I started to smoke, it was really soft comparing to nowadays smokers. But anyway, I think that it's not very good if you first drink alcohol to start to with absinthe, you know? It's very similar. Yeah, so I agree in some point. I don't know how exactly make the law and how to say it, but I agree that young people and people who are like first users should start with something what is not as strong. But the thing is also that if you grow, you never know what will be your result. In the end, if you know if you take top bud and lower bud, the content was different. You know?
You can say to somebody that is young and he buys some weed of you and it is not 10% THC but higher, you can say, hey, listen, for the first time, you know, try to smoke a smaller joint.
Yeah, that's right. That's
first, give the effect. If you did smoke the joint that was a little bit too big and you are too stoned, hey, take some sugar or drink some orange juice, and it will help you to get down again. It's not so much about what percentage something should have to protect people. It's basically knowing what you buy, why you buy it, and what you can expect from it. That will help you to determine if this is good or not. You know, it's if you imagine that in Germany, let's say that there is a social club, you know, and you are a member, and you are 20, you know, then it's more important to know, okay, what is the weed, what is it like, what do the cannabis weeds look like, what is the terpene profile, you know, what do we know already of how these specific substances, what kind of effect do they have on you, and based on that information, you can decide, this is something I want to try, or this is something that I don't want to try. You know, it can even be so far as saying, "Hey, listen, I smoked this UK cheese, and it made me paranoid." From the terpene profile, you can see which terpene was dominant, and then you can know, okay, maybe next time I should select a different strain of cannabis that does not have this terpene as a dominant one.
Yeah.
And then you know it's going to give you a different effect. So it's more about transparency of what is inside that can help you to decide if something is good for you or not. Just saying 10% THC is it's not, there's not enough nuance.
That's right. That's right. Also, good on what is good on social clubs that you don't smoke alone. You know, my friend who I smoked first told me, never smoke alone. This is, I think, also very good advice for people who want to try, who want to experiment. Obviously, it's always nice if you can smoke with someone else and you have a good setting with some other people.
Normally, you get a little bit more high if you share the joint with someone else.
That's right. That's right.
And you always pass the joint on the left side, huh?
Don't forget to pass it.
You know why my nickname is Patex? Because I always forgot to pass the joint, and so they say, "Hey, it's glued to your finger."
Cool. Patrick, you said you have been working for a long time for BioBiz company. And why did you stop to work there? Because it's a dream job for lots of people. You told us that you visited lots of countries. You had very nice opportunities to meet people in countries where people normally don't go. You can share knowledge about growing, meeting people who have or are the same wave. They think positively about cannabis, you know. So what lead someone to leave the company like BioBiz?
Stupidity, arrogance, I don't know, a midlife crisis. You know, I turned 50 and I was like, okay, I'm working now for this company since 15 years. What else? What else can I do? How can I still grow within this company? Or and I was a little bit at the end of my possibilities of what I could achieve. You know, I mean, we had already a huge amount of successes, and basically everything was going fantastic. And then, yeah, you start thinking, okay, maybe the grass is greener on the other side somewhere, huh?
Maybe some loss of motivation, or
Yeah, that too. It's like, you know, if you do something for 15 years, you know, I don't know. I was thinking, you know what? There's also other stuff I could do. I was basically, I went to so many countries. I knew so many people. I had such a huge network, and there was a lot of times also people saying, "Hey, why did you come work for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, why? I have a fantastic job. I have a good salary. Everything is okay." But at one point, there was like, you know, if you work in this industry, you know, I started working first with Grow Shop, you know, and people growing a few square meters. Then you move to like a fertilizer company, and everybody needs a fertilizer that is growing wheat. So you explain people how to use this to your advantage. And then I thought, okay, what else can you? What's the next step in the cannabis industry? And I thought maybe I should work for like a seed bank or something, because everything starts with a seed. You know, what you see in Iran. I would have never sold any fertilizer in Iran if there was not availability for seeds. So maybe I would like to work for a seed company, and I thought, well, that could also be funny, because at BioBiz, I was not allowed to talk about weed. You know, I talk about plants. I need to be discreet. I need to protect my clients in countries where the cannabis is fucking illegal. You know, so and with a seed bank, you talk about cannabis all the fucking time. You know. But then I had the opportunity, I had some offers working for like a CBD cannabis facility. And I said, okay, then I'm actually working with cannabis, but not the real one, you know? So,
non-alcoholic beer.
Like non-alcoholic beer, yeah, exactly, like soft porn, name it what you want to name it. And eventually, okay, I was already out of BioBiz, and I was doing some other stuff, and there was the corona, the lockdown, everything. So basically everything all my ambitions basically went a little bit to dust. And then I got a phone call from the Netherlands, from the founder of BioBiz. And he said to me, he says, listen, I applied for a license for the Dutch cannabis experiment. And if we get this license, would you be interested in coming to work for me? You know, because he says you were one of my best guys at BioBiz, and I can use your talent and expertise for the cannabis experiment. And I was like, so I said, CBD cannabis? No, THC cannabis. What do you do then? Yeah. They were like, okay, I drop everything. When can I come? You know, when can we start doing this? And so this is how I basically now ended up as a sales guy for the first legal cannabis production in the Netherlands.
Congratulations! I think this is a dream job, not to sell fertilizers, but sell weed legally in large scale. Am I right?
On a large scale. We need to be able to produce approximately 6.5 tons per year.
6.5 tons per year.
6,500 kilos. Yeah. This is you know, to make sure that we don't run out of capacity. It can also be less, but maybe for the viewers we should start maybe with explaining what the Dutch cannabis experiment actually is.
Exactly.
Because of course, you know, the viewers in Czech Republic, the people in the Czech cannabis industry, they know that within the Czech government there is also talks about, you know, going towards legalization. If Germany is going to legalize, then we are going to make the same steps.
Hopefully.
In the Netherlands, of course, we already had coffee shops since almost 40 years. But it's not, cannabis is not legal, it is tolerated. So it is being produced, and then miraculously it falls out of the sky into the hands of the back door of a coffee shop, and then they bring it inside and they can sell it. And the sales is okay, and possession and consumption is okay, whatever. But we've never made any arrangements for the production to be more transparent. You know, so in 2017, the political parties that were forming a government, one said we want to legalize cannabis, the other one said no fucking way. So as a compromise, they said, okay, let's do an experiment. If we are going to allow people, we give people a license to produce cannabis legally, according to health standards, we analyze it for contaminations, for pesticides. But what happens if we produce the cannabis legally and then give it to the coffee shop and they sell it to the end consumer? What is going to happen to, for example, public health, information, drug abuse prevention, Now, if people go into a coffee shop, they buy a weed of which they know actually nothing. They don't know what strain it is, they don't know how it's grown, they don't know if it has pesticides or contaminations. They only know that it has this name, it costs this much, and hopefully it's going to get them high. You can go into a shop and buy, for example, a power plant, or no, a White Widow, but in reality it's a power plant. But they just name it White Widow. So what is going to happen if we do it openly and transparently? What is that going to mean for public health, for example? So in this experiment, there is going to be 11 cities that are going to participate in this experiment. There's a total of 83 coffee shops, and those 83 coffee shops are going to buy their weed from one of the 10 licensed producers. And I work for one of those licensed producers. The one I'm working for is called Hologram, and we are going to produce, we are one of the smallest actually of the 10, and what we are going to do to stay a little bit, of course, in my spirit, we're going to grow again.
Cool.
But so to try to get this license was an amazing process, because of course first you can say, okay, the government is saying, okay, we look for 10 companies that are going to produce legal cannabis. You can imagine a lot of people are jumping on, me, I have a garage here in the back, I can do it. No, you have to come with a good plan. You have to, be able to produce 6.5 tons per year. So your facility needs to be large and professional, and there needs to be hygiene standards. You need to also have the authorization of the municipality where you are. If the mayor of your town doesn't want to have a weed producing facility in this town, then your plans are not going to work. So there was 150 companies that put in a plan, send it to the government, and then they do a selection process, and from these 150 there was 39 left. And with this 39 they do a lottery. So they pick 10 and they get the license. And so that was in December 2020, if I'm not mistaken, or something. So they do the lottery and they pick the 10 names, and we were not in there. And then they pick another one, because they pick all of them to make like the 10 first, and then like a waiting list. And we were on the number 11.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was like, I basically already dropped everything, and I was like, okay, you know what? Santa Claus, the 3rd of December, give me this gift, and no. And then a couple of months later, we received a phone call, and one of the companies that got the license, they actually had no idea how to do it. They had a good plan, but they didn't know how to execute. So they said, you know what? Forget about it. We give the license back. And then they gave the license to the number 11, and that was us. So suddenly, we were back in the game.
Big luck.
Yeah, that was. No, it was karma.
Karma.
It was karma. They make us sweat a little bit, They touch our balls a little bit, and then they go. Right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's nice story. I like stories, and this is like a really nice.
Yeah, it's a fucking nice.
Be like 11 in draw, and then.
In the Netherlands.
When you are in peace that you lost, then you got a phone call. You did not lost.
No, you're back in again. Yeah.
You won.
It's like thinking you did not win the lottery, and then they call you and say, hey, and then suddenly you have 20 million in your bank account. Hey, what's happening here? So yeah.
But in lottery, I don't remember the case when somebody called, I don't want the win, please give it to number 2.
Yeah, no, that doesn't. No, what's going on?
Yeah. Patrick, tell me, you need to produce 6.5 tons. It was like demand from the government.
Yeah.
They want to produce 65 tons per year from because there is 10 licensed producers. So 10 times 6.5 is 65 tons.
65
So
tons.
this is what government is expecting that
Nah,
be consumed.
no. This is basically like a safeguard.
Okay.
You know, if you say to these 83 shops, okay, from this moment on, you have to buy all your wheat no longer from the back door, but you have to buy it from a licensed producer. What happens if they don't have stock anymore?
Yeah.
Then this shop can say, hey, but listen, you forced me to buy it from a licensed producer. Okay, they have very nice quality, so I'm happy, but if they don't have anything anymore, I cannot go to the back door anymore.
Yeah,
So we cannot get the risk that there is not enough supply. So actually, in my estimations, because for the last 1.5 years, I have been visiting the coffee shops that participate, and I talk with them to see what is their wishes, what is their expectations, and how much wheat are they selling every day or every week or every month. Because before we started the preparations for this experiment, nobody really knew, except for the tax company, because you have to give them your sales figures, you know. So we already determined that this 65 tons is about 2.5 times more than those coffee shops would sell on a yearly basis. But then there is also a possibility that if you are a smoker, you know, you enjoy daily to smoke a couple of joints, or maybe a couple of times per week, maybe you smoke 3-4 grams per week or something. If in your own town you know that they are only selling the backdoor wheat, but in the town 5 minutes away from you they are selling licensed, clean cannabis, honest weed basically, where you know exactly what it is and what's inside, you know even when it was harvested and from which company it comes, you know much more about it. There is a big chance that a lot of people will move from their usual coffee shop and go to one that is selling the legal products, because it's supposed to be cleaner, it's supposed to be better, and it's not going to be more expensive than the stuff that is grown illegally. Why? You know, a Kali weed that now sells for 25-30 grams in a coffee shop, why does it have to cost 25-30 euros? That Kali weed is flowering also 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Just like a White Widow. So why does it have to be 3 times more expensive than a White Widow? Not anymore. So there is a possibility that there will be an increase of sales in the shops that participate in the experiment. And for this, there is this extra supply. It's not that we are going to have 6.5 ton in our stock all the time. No? It's if it's necessary. Can we produce this on a yearly basis? Yes.
Is there some like price you have to keep, like
a regulated price?
Yeah.
No. It's honestly, if we want to sell our wheat for 15 euros per gram and it's going to cost 30 euros in the coffee shop, that's possible.
Yeah. Okay.
But you have 10 licensed producers.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you're going to sell it very expensive, the coffee shop can also just go to another licensed producer and ask, what is your price?
So they can pick up from where they will.
You know, the coffee shops, they will have like the luxury that they can basically just sit behind their laptop, go to the web pages of the 10 licensed producers, log in, see what kind of cultivars we have available, and make their choice. And instead of going somewhere in the middle of the night in a parking place and having to pay in cash, they can now just send an email, they receive an invoice, they make a bank transfer, and we supply. Ready and packed and everything.
Interesting that you said they will send you money to bank. Is it already solved? Because what I know, there are like a problem with the bank, because if you have a cannabis business, it's quite often a problem to get a regular contract in a bank to sell, let's say, CBD or whatever. So is it already solved in Holland? Is it
for most of us, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, all the coffee shops have a bank account in some sort of construction or the other. They all managed somehow because they need a bank account to for example, pay their employees. You know? But you can see sometimes, you know, when people visit Dutch coffee shops, you might notice that sometimes they say, we prefer cash.
Yeah.
They need this cash to be able to pay the suppliers on the back door. You know, they don't have to do this anymore afterwards.
Yeah.
They can just, everybody can pay by card if they want, because basically everything is going to be by bank.
Yeah.
It is true that also for the licensed producer, you have a license. You have a license that has the autograph of the Minister of Justice and the autograph of the Minister of Health. So you would expect, if they say, we allow these people to produce this product, cannabis will stay illegal through the time of the experiment, but we give these people an exemption. Then you would expect that the bank will say, okay, no problem. But of course, when you say cannabis to a bank, they go like, oh, black money.
Exactly.
When in fact we are doing everything openly, you know?
Like for me, it's like a topic I would like to talk more to people, like that to work in cannabis business. It's like it's sometimes worse than I don't want to say war, but you know, it's we all face some troubles. You know, you cannot have. I cannot sell my books and accept credit cards because credit card.
Why not?
Yeah, because I sell dangerous goods.
But
if you buy my
because
book,
your book is about cannabis.
Exactly, but if you buy my book in a regular bookstore, you can order it by and pay by card, but not on my website where I sell nothing else than books.
What?
Yeah, this is how it is, you know, and there are lots of stigmas on cannabis, you know. If you know, here on a trade show like that, we are like family, you know. You can talk to people about cannabis, no problems. But you know, if you go with some people somewhere, you know, and we barely know each other, and we start to talk about what are you doing, what's your job, you know, and you say, okay, I work in cannabis, so people are laughing or they don't know what to think, you know. So, but in the end, we see that how many people is working in this branch here. How many people are using weed, you know, and they work, they go to, they have regular work, they have families, you know, we know it, you know, but anyway, you still have to face like obstacles in your regular life, you know, because you work with cannabis. But
that's true.
If you have casino or selling the vodka on the streets, you are okay, you know, so.
You are it's more socially accepted.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's because of people don't know exactly what cannabis is about, because it's like in a shady corner.
Yeah.
You know? It's when people ask me what kind of work I do, I say I do research for an organic research facility, something like that, and they go like, "Oh, that sounds boring." They don't ask me anymore. If I tell them I work for a legal cannabis facility, then they probably want to know everything about it, you know. And my whole neighborhood is going to say, look, there is the cannabis guy. You know, that's not going to really help me as well. You know, so that's a little bit shitty. Even when we are going to start with our production and our sales, I would probably not tell my neighbors exactly what kind of work I'm doing, you know, until it becomes maybe legalized or something. Because in the end, we would not have all this stuff, you know, in Czech Republic or in Germany or in the Netherlands. The only thing that we need to do, honestly, is just cross the word cannabis out of the laws. You know, we need the best thing to do actually is just decriminalization.
Yeah,
not legalization. Just simply take it out.
Decriminalization, and from my point of view, also some regular frame, some rules. You can buy it, of course, but it's good that you will know, if you buy weed, that you will know that it's not full of chemicals, for example.
Yeah.
Because if you go to buy bread, it always have some rules, some regulation, how the bread, from what the bread should be made of. So
right, imagine, you like to bake cakes, and you're quite good at it, and all your friends always, for every birthday, are asking you, can you bake a cake for us? And you do it, and you have so much fun in this that you say, you know what, I'm going to make my company out of it. You know, so you just go to the Chamber of Commerce, you describe yourself as Mr. Jose, cakes. You know, I'm going to make cakes. Oh, then maybe the Food and Health Administration will come to see if your kitchen is clean enough and if you are respecting the hygiene laws, because you're going to sell food. you need to have clean hands, you know?
Exactly.
And they say, it looks all fantastic, let's go. And you start selling. Cannabis is the same as cake. You like to bake cakes, you like to grow wheat, it should be exactly the same thing. That way, you can simply say, for example, I have this fantastic strain. I'm going to cultivate it and I'm going to put it on the market. You know, you just have a secure place where you grow it. You have your wheat tested in a laboratory to see that there's no pesticides, no contaminations, no heavy metals, and then you can sell it. Simple as that. You pay your taxes, done. No problem at all.
Cannabis is a plant at the beginning, and
It's a plant. It's a fucking plant.
It didn't kill anyone yet.
Yes, I mean, do they have laws in Czech Republic that say how many tomato plants you can put on your balcony?
I don't know.
Probably not.
I hope it's more than 10 because I have lots of tomatoes at home.
No, really, I like to grow my own tomatoes because it's like what you can buy in shop. It's not tomato at all.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, so-
But you know, look at, for example, in Germany they are saying, okay, we want to legalize it, but if you're under 21, you cannot have weed that is more than 10% THC. It's not only THC that gives the effect. And you cannot have more than 25 gram, and you know, there's all kinds of buts and yes and this, and we have that too, of course. We, you know, when we in our facility, when the plant is this big, when it comes from pre-veg and it goes into veg, we have to give it a label, and then this plant is followed from being this big until the flower goes in the pocket of the end consumer. They want to see the complete process. They want to see that nothing falls off the table and is being sold on the black market. We have no interest in selling stuff on the black market at all. Why do we want to do that anyway? You know? So all basically the rules and regulations and restrictions we have to respect at this moment are because we simply did not decriminalize the weed, which would have been the easiest. But okay, no problem. You want to, honestly, if you want to change something, you sometimes have to invest not only in money or whatever, but also investing in convincing the authorities that when you do this, you can do this clean and nice and well. And so we are basically doing this. We are basically in a dance with our government, showing them that we have been dancing for many years. We know what we're doing. We're not going to step on your toes, you know? We're just going to show you how much fun it is to dance together. And hopefully when the experiment is finished after 4 years, the only conclusion can be, let's continue this dance, and let's continue this dance in the whole country.
So the experiment has like a deadline when it ends?
Yes,
So it's
4 years. 4 years.
4 years. So from what time? For time you first start to grow, or for 2020?
Well, it's basically we're going to do like a kind of small test pilot in only 2 cities, the cities of Tilburg and Breda in the Netherlands. Czech people that go to the Netherlands to smoke weed, some of them maybe know these towns, you know, they are in the south. There we're going to do like a small test pilot for about 6 months, you know, to test, you know, this track and trace system that we are tracking the plant until it's flowered, until it's sold. How this track and trace system works, how does the delivery of the product works. This is going to go well. And this is about six months. We expect that in the middle of next year the experiment is going to start. So the summer of next year, in 10 cities in the Netherlands, you can buy what I like to call honest weed.
Okay.
And from that moment on, it will be 4 years. There will be some evaluations in between, but after those 4 years, it's going to be the decision if they want to continue with this system nationwide, or if they are going to continue with the old system as it was, which of course I cannot imagine, or maybe we will have new governments in Europe that are so right-wing that nothing is allowed anymore. I don't know. But in the Netherlands we say if you do not shoot, you always miss.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you have a license. You have you show me that you're at your facility.
Yeah.
What is your expectation? Where will you start? When will you start? Like December, September, October?
We hope that by the end of this year, we can jump in this pilot project in Tilburg and Breda.
Okay.
But it depends, of course. You know, we are building, and you know, when you're building something, there can always be some delays. And we have also to work with some planning and logistic things that are a little bit tricky. For example, according to the guidelines of the experiment, we are allowed to enter 1,000 mother plants into our facility. We have a time frame of 2 weeks for this. They are not even going to ask us where those plants come from, because basically the cannabis plant is illegal, so they don't really want to know. They say, okay, listen, for 2 weeks, door open, plants inside, door closed, and after that, if we want to bring in new varieties and new genetics, we can only do this with seeds. So at this moment, what we are preparing is which varieties do we want to have, and how many mother plants will we have ready to put inside. We are hoping that at the beginning of autumn we have our 1,000 plants ready and we can put them in the facility, and then one by one we're going to start up our grow cells. And then, yeah, you know it, you need at least like 3 months, you know, from clone to harvest. So that would mean somewhere by the end of the year.
Good.
Do not put money on this, because I have been basically speaking with people since 1.5 years now about when the experiment is going to start. And every time there is some setbacks or things need to be reorganized or whatever, and there's always delays. But at this moment, I am confident enough to say, okay, it's going to be end of this year.
Great. I hope we definitely stay in touch, and if we will start to produce, it would be nice also to visit you in your facility, and we will see if it will be chance to bring some reportage to people who listen to us now. But we will see what future will bring, you know.
The funny thing is, you know, that with almost everybody I talk to, you know, all of them are saying, is there a possibility that we can come and look? Yeah, for sure.
Of course, everybody do that.
I would basically say exactly the same thing, but I can already tell you, not even me is going to be allowed to enter a grow room. You know, we need to be so cautious for all the different types of diseases and mold and whatever. So it probably will be like looking through a window or something like that.
But anyway, it would be interesting to talk, to see how it developed, you know, and how it works, because also, you know, one thing is plan, and the second thing is reality, you know. So we both know that it's nice to have a good plan, but surprise for everyone, you know.
What I enjoyed so far the most was, you know, trying to, you know, in the beginning, you know, when we started with the preparations and everything, of course, everybody in our team, everybody has like a wish list, you know.
Okay.
Like oh, hey, listen, if we're going to do this, I want to have like a tangy, you know. Oh, and it was like, oh, and somebody else says, no, dance hall. Oh, yeah. So you know it, you know. So at one point you have like this massive list with all these different genetics. Which one are you going to choose? You cannot do everything, you know. Okay, we have like, what is it? I think 8,000 square meters in total, but you cannot have like 250 different varieties. I mean, can you imagine? You would need like a separate facility just to keep all the mother plants alive. So, and this selection process was one of the things I enjoyed the most. You know, like, why are we going to take this one and not that one? You know? So you're going to look at the terpene profile. Hey, wait a minute, this is a really nice phenol, or this is a really nice variety. That is also a really nice variety, but wait a minute, in terpene profile, they are very similar. So they are very similar in effect also. Do you need like 2 of them, or should you maybe take something that is like more different? You know, should you also have, for example, varieties that are like, you know, the 1-1, have just as much CBD as THC, you know, or should you only have like, you know, mega THC stuff? No. And that was good fun. And the funny thing is, if you ask the coffee shop, this is actually confidential information. If you ask the coffee shop, a lot of them are not saying can you get me like the newest, dankest Kali weed or the newest fantastic Canadian genetics? Most of them are saying, like, listen, if you're going to grow clean and transparent, can we have like, I don't even remember what an original White Widow looks like or tastes like. You know, can we have orange bud? Do you have an orange bud? I used to sell. It was so nice. I haven't seen it in 20 years. A lot of coffee shops, they said, okay, if we're going to do it right, let's get back to where we were 20 years ago. You know? And yes, of course, we can have some Kali stuff on the side as well. But you know what the majority of people in the Netherlands smoke?
What?
Amnesia, White Widow, Silver Haze, Lemon Haze. Those are the best-selling weeds in the Netherlands. So, and not wedding cake or Girl Scout cookie or. You know who buys that? The tourists.
Tourists,
The tourists. And Dutch people, honestly, no offense to Dutch people that are listening to this, they don't care. They just want to have a weed that doesn't cost them too much, that is pretty decent, and that gets them lost them.
I can talk to you for hours, but I don't know if somebody will listen such a long time.
If you're not listening, fuck you. If you're listening, love you.
No, I thank you very much. It was very lucky coincidence that we met here on this booth at that time.
It's completely spontaneous.
I'm very happy that we started to talk and do an interview for our listeners. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And if there is something you want, some message you want to say to Cannabis Podcast listeners, do it right now. I would appreciate if you say something. What is on your mind?
I think you know, one of the most beautiful things that connects people in this industry is, you know, the shared love we have for cannabis.
Yeah.
You know, what I've enjoyed the most in the 20 plus years that I'm working in this industry is when somebody has grown weed for the first time and then comes and says, look, here it is, you know. And sometimes it's like maybe not so good or whatever, but you get so fucking stoned from it because it's full of love. And that's the nicest thing, man. That is the nicest thing.
It's really nice. I also remember first time I blown weed, it's like something different that you go around. And nice.
And then somebody comes and goes like, you go,
wow, it's even better.
I've had people, you know, that there was this one girl in Chile, and she was quite young, I think 18, 19 years old. And she says, okay, I want to start growing weed, and I was still working for Biobis, and I give her a tri-pack, and I say, let's stay in touch, I help you, you know? And she said, okay, am I using now the green bottle or the red bottle? And I help her a little bit, said, do this, do like this, do like this. And at one point she said to me, Patrick, I'm not sure if I'm doing everything correctly. Maybe I send you some pictures and you can give me a diagnosis if I'm on the right track or not. And she sent me a picture, and I look at, what the fuck? It was the dankest motherfucking weed I've ever seen in my life. I say, girl, I say, from which cosmic reality do you come? Because that is the most beautiful weed I've ever seen, you know? And that, you know, that's why I love this work in this cannabis industry, you know, because I say this a little bit also on purpose because the last thing I said before was that Dutch people basically only want to have mediocre weed, you know? We cannot finish the conversation with that, you know? That sucks, you know?
That's right.
So let's end it like this. Hey, smoke some weed.
Be good to yourself, be good to people around you, and I think it will come back to, as you said, karma. Is everywhere is for free as well. In Czech we say karma is dharma. Karma is for free.
Yeah, that's true. But karma is dharma because you have karma and you have also dharma. And dharma is basically like the daily routine karma, and karma is like the overall. You know, when we always say, that's karma, in India they would say, no, that's not karma, that's dharma.
Yeah, okay. So I think everybody should start to speak Czech because we have a nice language. Huh?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, because like everybody in my generation in, in the Netherlands, we all know one phrase. I didn't even knew that it was Czech, and that's je to.
Je to.
Je to.
Je to. Yes. Je to.
Je to.
You know these guys?
Yes, I grew up with them.
Je to.
Je to.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Awesome.
Bye bye, Patrick.
Bye. Ciao.